to notify us. Yeah. Yeah.
It's 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Northern Planning Committee. I am Councillor Paul Wynne, Chairman of the committee. We are not expecting a fire drill today. In the event of an alarm sound, please leave the building and gather at the front of the building. I'm obliged to inform you that this is a meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Could I also ask you to please ensure that mobile phones are switched off and ensure the volume on your laptop is muted. To ensure the members of this committee and all the points raised by the public speakers are properly heard, I must advise you that I will not tolerate any disruptive behaviour. This is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting. And if such behaviour takes place and persists, I will adjourn the meeting. Members should ensure that they are present throughout the meeting, as you cannot vote on any item if you have not heard all the debate. The members and officers introduce themselves each before they speak, so those listening know who's speaking. And now I shall ask officers and members to introduce themselves. Nat, would you like to start, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Nat Green, Quarry and Counting Hill.
Councillor Mike Isherwood for Oswestry West.
Councillor Ted Clark for Basin Hill and also Sutton on Basin Hill.
Councillor Joyce Darrow, Centre Alton.
Councillor Edward Towers for Wem Rural and Wixel.
Councillor Gary Burchett, Bagley, Shrewsbury.
Councillor Jeff Allen, Ellesmere, Irvine. Councillor Steve Chalmers, Whittington. Councillor Roger Evans, substitute member for London.
Uplift Planning and Development Services Manager.
Planning Officer.
Jane Raymond, Senior Planning Officer.
Philip Muller, New Development Manager.
Vince Hunt, Councillor for Falmouth and also Vice Chair.
Beatrice Iqbal, Solicitor.
Emily Marshall, Committee Officer.
Thank you very much. First one, apologies for absence. David Vesmer, substituted by Roger Evans. Number 2, minutes to confirm the minutes from the meeting held on the 18th of July 2023. Proposer, please. Thank you. Seconder. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. I can't. I wasn't here. My apologies.
You weren't here. Steve, thank you. You'll do that. Thank you.
I also abstain.
Yeah, you abstained as well, so we've got 3 abstentions now. Okay. Thank you. Public questions none received. For disclosable pecuniary interest, are there any? No. Okay. Right, onwards. Planning applications. The first one, which is Land North of Platt Lane, Hollywood West. Philip, you're presenting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is for changing use of land to use as a residential caravan site for one gypsy family with 2 caravans, including no more than 1 static caravan, together with laying a hard standing, erection of a day room, building and installation of packaged treatment plant. Members will be aware of the site having visited it earlier today. And there's one update on the update sheet, one further letter of comment received. Officers have no further comments in relationship to this further letter of representation. I'll now run through the slides. Map showing location to a recognised community cluster with a range of facilities. That is, it's just outside, alongside Hollingswood, which is the recognised settlement, and we travelled back through Tilstock on the route back to Shire Hall here this morning, so members will be aware of where the main settlement is with all its usual facilities. In fact, there it is. Sorry, I was ahead of myself. The site is here, proposed site. and that's Tilstock. The application site is part of a rural settlement known as Hollingswood. That's showing the site in a wider context of where the mouse is hovering now in relation to the surrounding area. And that's an aerial view of the site, obviously hatched in red, very rural. Right, this is the proposed site plan. And here's Platt Lane where we drove along this morning with the entrance, proposed day room here, cycling of the mobile home here, vehicle turning area. Members will have noted how well screened the site is, particularly on this western side along here and along here, more open but with more mature trees along this elevation here. That's the proposed day room, which is a standard practice now for all gypsy sites with a day room and kitchen facilities. There's some photographs of the site. Obviously, the vegetation areas have been cut when members visited this morning. That's showing a dwelling to the rear. And that's the nearest dwelling, which members will have observed this morning is on the opposite side of the public highway in front of the application site. Members are reminded that a key policy in relation to this application is policy CS12, Gypsy and Traveller Provision, which refers to the accommodation needs of gypsies and travellers, and that sites close to key centres and community hubs and clusters in the open countryside are considered acceptable, taking into consideration, of course, access to sustainable services. Members are also reminded with regard to the appeal decision at Five Oaks Stables, Coton Whitchurch, which is dated 12th of December 2022, which was for a site officers considered similar to the site under consideration in relation to sustainability issues, and this was allowed on appeal by the appointed inspector. This is a material consideration that weighs in the power imbalance in favour of the application under consideration, and this appeal is referred to in section 6.1 of the officer's report. Further still, members will have observed the site of this as they drove past it en route back to Wem this morning, or via Wem to Shire Hall. Members' attention is drawn to the consultative responses as outlined in section 4 of the report and the fact that none of these object to the proposal. Members' attention is particularly drawn to paragraph 4.15 and the Council's Gypsy Liaison Officer's response. Members will have also observed on site this morning the public highway that passes the site. There are no issues raised from a highway point of view. It is noted that Wicklow Parish Council have objected to the proposal owing to the site being open countryside and therefore, in their opinion, no different to an application to build a house at this location. As pointed out earlier, policy CS12 of the local plan allows for gypsy accommodation outside of recognised development boundaries. Section 4.2 of the report is also noted, and members of the public and letters of objections, as well as letters of support received in relation to the application. In conclusion, officers consider the application acceptable in the planning balance, with the applicants demonstrating an adequate local connection and consideration to their current personal circumstances and need for relocation to the site from their present site. This as all outlined in the report. The site overall considered sustainable when compared to the recent approved appeal referred to earlier in this presentation. As such, the recommendation is approval subject to the conditions as set out in Appendix 1 attached to the report. This concludes my presentation on this application, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Right, we have 3 speakers and 1 to be read out. So could I have Mr. Sharman up, please, first? This is against. You have 3 minutes. We have a clock there, so you can see when getting on it.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, committee, for the opportunity to speak today. You should have popped in for a cup of tea this morning. I was there working from number 5. Anyway, I represent the 30 households who posted public comments objecting to any development of this site and unofficially convey the view of Wixford Parish Council, who unequivocally oppose it based on the countryside designation. I'd also like to assure Mr. and Mrs. Watton that what I feel, what I write or say, has little or no sway. This is not my decision to make, but I'm taking the right to speak today, as I'm no longer clear what does matter if development boundaries and land designation can be so easily recommended to be waived. I have 2 quick points regarding the public comments, as the weight of opinion doesn't come across in the report. Hollandwood, as you would have seen, has only about 40 houses within that immediate cluster, so receiving 30 objections is proportionally high. Of course, it's likely some come from a wider area, but without a map, we can never know. Secondly, surely a planning decision is made without regard to the applicant's character or work ethic, though their excellent qualities have been prospective neighbours. Yet a large number of the supported comments solely or majorly provide a character reference. Of course, I don't believe the decision hinges on public comments, nor about how close we are to the shops or the local bowling green. This is simply an application for change of land use to set up a permanent family home. I'm okay with that. But if I were to attempt to submit an application for a comparable 1-bedroom sized bungalow on the directly adjoining land, I'm certain it would be rejected outright. So why is this so different, and how has it got so far and is recommending approval? To answer that, we start with a private sale of a plot of agricultural wooded land, and we follow the emails attached to the submission. We see in black and white the intention is to cross one bridge at a time, with the gateway being the first obstacle. The emails then show evidence, support and steering from the planning officer, and eventually the field access was not unreasonably granted, fine, but then the trees are cleared on the site and the planning actually submitted. We are where we are, decision time. But what I really don't understand is that if this does get approved, what stops it being replicated on the adjacent lands? The precedent is already used as an argument to support this application, so can the adjacent landowners, such as myself, just divide up the paddock and enjoy inflated land prices and create discount building plots? One final, less speculative point is the condition regarding the submission approval of drainage before commencing work. Why is this not a condition before the approval stage, so that the neighbouring land who could be impacted would still have some input? Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Well done. Okay. Right, we have a written one which you just want. By the way, Idris has come back in the fold. I'd like to welcome him back.
Thank you.
He left us for a bit and he's come back, so he must have something good about us. So thank you, Idris. This is from the Parish Council.
It's a written statement from Councillor Ian Mercer, who's the chairman of Wixford Parish Council. This statement was agreed by resolution of the Council on 10th of May 2023. Wixford Parish has open countryside designation, and because this application is for the construction of a permanent structure with associated services, the Parish Council views this application as being no different to an application to build a house in this location.
Oh,
That's it.
wow, okay. Right, so the next speaker is local member Edward. Edward, you have 5 minutes. The clock's there if you need 5 minutes.
Thank you, Shelley. This application is not about a person or family. It's about the principle of fairness for all in the locality in the current planning policy. The applicant simply wants a home in the open countryside, which is hard to get under local needs in a portable application. It fails the equality test stated in paragraph 8.3, where it states the concern of the planning law is to regulate the use of land in the interests of the public at large, rather than those of any particular group. Equality of opportunity to make applications must be considered by the committee today under section 70/2 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1970. The supporting statements are in the main personal testimonials for the good character of the applicant. This is not a planning consideration, and nobody has questioned the applicant's character or the fact he is a hard-working family man. The objectors have referenced planning material planning issues, which are the main considerations of this committee today. Please note that this is a greenfield area and agricultural site. The direction this application has taken mirrors very closely the pattern travel applications have used for providing space of this nature. These have been recently seen in Barker's Green, Wellshampton, where Councillor Brian Williams spoke very eloquently to this committee about the reasons we should refuse this application, and more recently Coton, and now here in Wixford and Holmeswood. The applicant has moved his goalposts steadily from being a timber woodyard for his business to a pony paddock to this Travers site application. In preparing for this, an application was made for a new access to this land to the parish council, who, judging each application separately, felt they could see the direction of travel for the purpose of the site. Nevertheless, judging it on its own merits, they approved it. Please note the day room build is a permanent change for this site that, when added to by a static caravan and a mobile one, could be considered as 3 separate homes in this plot. This is not a temporary change for the site. It should be noted that the allowance has not been made in SAMDEV 2025 to 2015 to 2025 for such traveller sites. So Shropshire Council is not viewing them on a case-by-case basis as added sites, and without exception approving each one. The concern might be that this then goes to appeal by the applicant of this committee reviews it today. But this mustn't phase this committee, because we are seeing, a little like solar farm applications, a steady flow of them. Where does this stop? If we consider applications should come from a different route and not simply play the game to a loophole which has developed in planning policy. The planning system must not be exploited. Applicants wishing to utilise land of this nature should apply for its development as a local needs dwelling. The letter of support is wrong in 4.2.2 and again in 6.1.25 when it says the applicant lived in Wixell. He didn't. Rather, he was in Wem rural parish at Edgerton in a semi-detached house with his mother. Only getting married did he move to his current location on a traveller site at Priest Heath. So he had previously established a pattern of living within a brick building in a settled way. The parish council, knowing all this, these circumstantial things, came to a strong conclusion not to support this application. That is why, on a point of fairness and principle and equality, knowing the family background and understand the nature of the way these traveller applications come to us from recent experience in other nearby Shropshire parishes, that I need to support the views of the residents of Hollinsworth and Wixell. I agree with our Shropshire Council planning officers bringing this application to our committee to both see and assess it today. Wixell is designated open countryside, and this prevents applications for domestic dwellings with a small number of exceptions. Traveller sites are not, as far as I'm aware, an exception. This is rather a backdoor way of achieving planning permission that local people themselves are prevented from obtaining. This is why there has been a roughly 10-fold increase in objections from local residents to this application. Is this equality opportunity? Is this fair? As I began by saying, this family is by all accounts a good and respected family who work hard within our WEMET division. But it is the way this application is being presented to us upon advice they have been given from others in the travelling community, including the Gypsy Liaison Officer, that it comes under traveller banner rather than other policies such as affordable needs dwelling policies that could relate to this parcel of agricultural land that other young families in the area would like to have the opportunity to develop. This is largely why this particular application has caused such concern, as it is exploiting a seeming loophole in our current SAMDEV policies, as I've already said. Note the planning officer's comments in paragraph 6.17, 0.18, 0.19, 0.10 and 0.11, which uses the Coton site appeal decision as a justification for agreeing to this application. The appeal decision at Five Oaks Coton allowed a material change of use from equestrian to mixed use equestrian and stationary caravans for residential purposes, including the erection of 2-day rooms down sloping to that use. This application is not equivalent to the recent Coton one that had an equine background and usage for the inspector to consider when it went to appeal. And here, caravans were placed even before permission and consent was given. The application is for development on a greenfield site, albeit underused, where this application to be approved, it will be a permanent change from open countryside. Another point that must be challenged is the proximity to need to all local facilities on page 15.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is, as the crow flies, much, much further. Thank you. I would like to say no to this today on those grounds.
Thank you. Could you like to move into the back of the room, please, David?
Yep.
Just give a couple of seconds. We have one more speaker for, and Darryl Wright. Let's come forward, please.
Yeah.
You have 3 minutes. It's on the clock. So when you start speaking, we'll start the clock. Okay. Can you just press the speaker on the right-hand side? Yes, that's it.
Okay, I'd like to thank Mr. Denson for the detailed and well-structured management report. As stated, it sets out that this application is for a single family site that can cater for needs of the family that can't be provided on the council site, which is where they are presently. The planning officer has identified the relevant planning policies and also the appeal decision at Coton Whitchurch, where the appeal inspector highlighted as part of the decision that a travel distance of 20 minutes in a car to access facilities was reasonable and that there is a need for private sites in rural locations where there is difficulty in finding sites in villages and towns. And this would concur with policies CS5 and CS12 and PPTS being the framework for accessibility. Access to facilities will be closer to the family in this location, and all planning matters have been satisfied. I therefore ask the committee to grant this application in line with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Just get your speaker off, please. Thank you very much. Look, I'm just going to ask Philip to explain why gypsy sites can be exception sites, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right, I refer members to, in particular, to paragraph 6.19 in the officer's report. And the key policy is policy CS12, which allows gypsies to have sites adjacent to settlements such as this in open countryside. And it's an interesting point being raised. The local member in particular mentioned something about local needs dwellings. And I recall in site this morning, one of the members mentioned that. And to be fair, I did look at it and I did say to members that if a local needs dwelling came on the site, would it get officer support? Yes, it would. Because it's in a settlement, Hollingswood. There are a number of dwellings within the surrounding vicinity, not immediately adjacent, but I would class this as what that famous term used, loose knit settlement. I don't agree with the local member in that loopholes are being used in this particular case. Members will be aware many applications of this nature come before this committee retrospectively. That is not the case here. And I also like the point members to the council's gypsy liaison officer and the comments as set out in paragraph 4.15 of the report, where they clearly support the status of the family, and therefore, as far as officers are concerned, this application is policy compliant, and hence the recommendation as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. I'm going to come to the floor now. Anybody like to make any comments?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say, having read this report, it's a very good report. Thank you. Two things stand out to me on the officer appraisal. One is the proposed site has not been identified in the adopted local plan as a location for gypsy and traveller pitches or other development as such. It is classified as countryside for planning policy purposes. The second thing that I pick up that stood out to me is the adopted local plan represents the starting point for any decision on planning applications. I agree with most of what Councillor Towers said. I think he made a very powerful argument, though I don't agree with the loopholes either. And as a council, I do think that it has been quite some time now since we've identified a site for gypsy and travellers. And I just ask, why is it taking so long? It's years we've been saying exactly the same thing. I have something similar on my patch, which was erring towards the same sort of situation. Unfortunately, due to enforcement, we've stopped it for now. I think it may be taken up again. So I have real concerns about that. And I will therefore not be supporting the officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Vince.
So I'll put my hand up, try and get in front of everybody else. Obviously, we did a site visit this morning. We've had a number of these over the years that I have been on the planning committee, and I think Philip is extremely right to point out that this is one of the few that have come before our eyes where the applicant has actually waited to do things in what we would consider to be the right order, rather than jumping in feet first and then applying afterwards. So that's to his credit. But obviously, it's been stated that there's a lot of good character reference. I think in a way, I do understand why people have done that, because there is a bit of a fallacy around potential that traveller families can bring to areas, and I think people just feel that they need to say this is a good guy and not a bad guy, none of which frankly has really very much to do with planning. I think in this instance, having, as I say, seen the site this morning, I would be minded to support the application. And I think that's really based around, as Philip has said, policy C12. I think he's right to point out the result of the last one where the decision was made and the inspector decided otherwise. I think each site has to be looked at on its merit, and I can't see any reasons, frankly, for rejecting this one. I think if this were to go to appeal, I think we'd fall over again, frankly. I'm going to support this. I do understand why people are concerned, but I think that concern would have been probably exactly the same if this had been an affordable home or something else. Yeah, I'm going to support this for those reasons, and I think C12 has to guide us on this. We do have a different set of rules when it comes to showman and traveller and gypsy sites, and we have to follow those rules. We are required to, and I think that this site is within those rules and guidelines. Thanks, Chair.
Is that a proposal?
I'm happy to propose it, yes.
Thank you. Right, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern is on 4.1.5, that the liaison officer is making a point about the applicant's good character. We're not here as planners to judge anything whatsoever of good character. The guy could be a raving loony. At the end of the day, he's granting permission for a site that he can sell that after he got permission. So his character is irrelevant. And the fact that the liaison officer has made quite a detailed comment about the applicant's character should not even be mentioned in this report. But at the same time, all supporters are on the same thing. They talked about his character. Again, it's not his character that we're voting on. We're voting on the rights of somebody to develop a site. So 6.1.12, the Gypsy liaison rules. I think we need to urgently review those rules and come up with a firm policy to suit the modern 2023 environment we're in right now. We've got lockdown coming in very soon as well. So at the very least, I'm going to abstain, but I would also suggest perhaps that we defer until we have a proper review of Gypsy liaison, of the policy.
That's not possible, obviously.
Well, I'm minded to abstain, but just wanted to mention the policy.
Just to go back to liaison officer, I was brought up in my younger life at Friends Bank. I know the name, and the reason why we went to liaison officer is because we want to know the history of the family. Because if they have to have history in the area, which they definitely have, because I remember when I was a child. Okay, so that's why it was brought up with them. That's why we asked the liaison officer. So that's that. Yeah,
I'd like to also add, we also need to be able to, they also need to be able to demonstrate that they are of gypsy status. As this policy allows the gypsies to have sites where normally you wouldn't support residential housing. That is the fact of the policies, and therefore the fact they touched on their character, it's to demonstrate that they are of gypsy status. The gypsy liaison officer is clearly satisfied that they meet that criteria.
Thank you.
Just want to come on the local plan point. We do have the local plan going through the process at the moment, but if you wanted to defer on that reason, the deferral would have to be for a very long time. So you need to take that into the balance if that's the decision you want to make. We wouldn't be in a position to come back on that for a very long time. So that would leave us open to appeal on non-determination.
Thanks, Alison. Yeah, be here rather than weeks. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Chair. Just want to second Councillor Hunt's proposal to accept the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Chair. On balance, I'm prepared to support the proposal and the seconding that's gone on. The site is very reasonable, very discreet, and what I'm most mindful of is the recent appeal at Copeland, which has a significant bearing on which way that we choose to drop on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. There's nobody else. We shall go to a vote. Okay. Can we have a roll call vote? I think this is the right expression Miranda keeps telling me.
Yep. Madam Chair.
Okay.
So we have a proposal for the approval of the application in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Please can confirm whether you're for or against. Joyce Barrow.
Abstain.
Gary Burchett.
Abstain.
Steve Charmley.
For.
Jeff Allen. For. Roger Evans. For. Ted Clark. For. Nat Green. For. Mike Isherwood. For. Vincent.
For.
Corwin.
For.
Chairman, I do note that none of the microphones work during that vote,
Yeah.
but because there's two
Oh, there's two
microphones.
on.
You're all
Okay,
flashing
thank
green
you.
again.
Yeah, that's fine. I should
But-
switch mine off.
But the vote is there.
I heard you, Roger.
Thank you, that's 8 for 2 abstentions, so that's gone through. So can we move to the next item, please, which is? Hi. Oh, right. Right, we come to on several roundabouts.
Yeah.
We'll just got room for everything. Okay. Okay, so we have a few roundabouts now. Jane is the officer presenting. I'm sure she'll be very swift and get through it.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, there is an issue with the microphones because
Is this flashing green?
there is an issue with the microphones. So
There's two microphones on.
Now, shall we go on now?
That's all. That's all.
One, Zebedee.
What, the magic roundabout?
Can you move it to the next one? Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can do that.
He's distracted
The next 10 agenda items relate to freestanding sponsorship signs to be displayed on roundabouts in the Shrewsbury area. This first slide shows the various locations. There you go. Dotted around mid Shrewsbury. Yeah. The next slide shows the specifications of the signs, which are all proposed to measure 800 millimetres wide by 500 millimetres high, fixed between two 800 millimetre high posts, and replace existing signs, existing smaller signs that measure 600 millimetre wide by 375 millimetre high. Members considered and approved 3 similar applications at 3 different sites at the July committee. 2 of the sites were for these larger signs, and 1 of the sites where the roundabout was smaller was the smaller signs measuring the 600 millimetre by 375 millimetre. These applications are for advertisement consent and do not require planning permission. Applications for advert consent should only be considered having regard to the impact on public safety and the impact on visual amenity, taking account of cumulative impacts. Each application needs to be considered in turn, having regard to the context of each location and the number and size of the proposed signs. Agenda item 6 is the roundabout junction, Woodcock Way, Muckmore Road. The roundabout at this location is a relatively large roundabout, measuring 30 metres in diameter. The application was originally for 4 signs in place of 3 existing, but has been reduced to 3 following a request from the case officer to help reduce the visual impact and cluttered appearance of having too many signs. This application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in Appendix 1 of the report.
Mr. Chairman, before we proceed,
Yeah,
let's put a point of order, a reference on it. If one of these roundabouts is in your division, do you abstain or do you go to the back of the room?
Good point. It is.
Yeah.
If it's within
Yeah.
the decision.
And what about if it's within a short distance where you live? Is that
Both.
prejudicial?
I would think both would mean the
Well,
same.
Well, I mean, it's for each member to decide,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I wouldn't have thought it was
Just
prejudicial.
if it's in the division.
Yes.
If it's in the division.
Okay.
There's no need to go to the back of the room if it's in your division, all right? Because hopefully.
Unless it's your business side, that's on.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so if you've got any objections, do you have a proposer for this application? Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Proposed seconds, second, got proposed and seconded. Okay, all those in favour, please show. All for and one abstention? No. Against, right.
Sorry, councillor Birchett, sorry, yeah, Birchett. Is this application within your division?
No, no.
Okay, yeah, just not how much.
You voted
Yeah, that's fine.
6,000 down for it.
Okay.
So, yeah. Councillor Clark's against, okay. Okay, next one, please, Jane.
Agenda item seven. The roundabout at this location is a large roundabout measuring 44 metres in diameter. It's for 5 signs in place of 4 existing signs. I would like to update members regarding paragraph 6.4.1 of the report, which states that having regard to the layout and scale of the signs, the impact on the conservation area will be negligible. It is officer's view that the proposed signs would have no adverse visual impact. You should recognise this roundabout, it's the one right outside. Yeah. This application is being recommended for approval, subject to conditions set out in Appendix 1 of the committee report.
Thank you. Second, Steve. Thank you. Any objections, any more comments? Ted?
I'd support the town councillor's objections. Please, I've got it in the report.
Right, thank you, Ted. All those in favour, please show. Against? Mike, Ted, 2 against. Okay, that's gone through. Sorry?
Is Ted the local member?
Youth local member,
Is this in your?
member Ted.
I think it's in your ward, isn't it?
It's on the border of Abbey and Sutton
Is
and
it
Cove.
the big one that's like 3?
He knows better than me.
What's-
It's in the ward with his 3 members, I believe.
Yeah,
It's got 3 members, I think.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
No,
Ted,
it's-
abstain.
So you need to abstain to
Stop.
Ted.
It's not, I don't think.
Right.
I don't think that is.
Depends which side of it you're on.
Yeah.
I think the roundabout applies to the division, London
Right,
roundabout.
quarter closes, Ted, so you vote on quarter, all right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay,
Depends which side the roundabout.
right, we'll move on next one.
Number 9.
This is in
Number 8, number 8, the Remdo Road, London Road. The roundabout at this location is small, measuring 15 metres in diameter. It was originally for 4 signs in place of the 4 existing smaller signs, but as it's larger signs, it's been reduced to 3, following a request from the case officer to help reduce the visual impact and cluttered appearance. This application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions in Appendix 1.
Okay, very pretty roundabout.
That went through.
Thank you. The second,
It is.
it's got signs already, sir.
Second.
Thank you.
That's an
Yours proposed a second.
It's long.
No more comments, all in favour, please show. Against? Right, that's gone through. Next one, please.
Item 9, Otley Road, Wenlock Road. It's approximately 20 metres in diameter. It was originally for 4 signs in place of the 3 existing, and it's been reduced to 3. It's recommended for approval, subject to the conditions in Appendix 1.
Chairman, this is in the 3-member ward, I think.
It is definitely.
That is a 3-member. Okay, Ted, that's in your ward, yeah?
Is it?
Actually, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I think that's in Seven Valley. The Seven Valley comes up Cleves Lane. It's ridiculous the way the business. Seven Valley takes over that bottom estate. Just
Right, I've absolutely no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, the estates are like that roundabout. It's like-
It does.
Otley Road, Wenlock Road, yeah?
Yes.
The report says it is in,
It's based in
No,
Kilcolm and
it's in
Sutton.
It's in base, yes.
And it's in mine.
Yes.
it is in yours, it's 3-member ward. It says.
It always says at the end of the report who's the divisional member.
Correct.
Ted, you are one. You can't vote on this, Ted.
I'm a one-off, yeah.
You're a one-off, we know. Right, any comments, proposer
The room or the country.
for Joyce for no more comments, show of hands. Or please. Against, Mike, thank you. Ted's abstained, obviously. Right, next one, please.
Agenda item 10, Copland Road, Mitterneck Road. It's one of the smaller roundabouts, 16 metres in diameter. It was originally for 4 signs in place of 3 existing smaller signs and has been reduced to 3. And it's recommended for approval, subject to conditions set out in Appendix 1.
Oppose.
Thank you. Seconder. Any other comments? No. All those in favour, please show. That's gone through. Ted against. Just for the sake of the member of the public there, because we're going through these, we have to do it because it's their council-owned properties. Okay.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question as a member of the public?
You can do. I shall let you. I shall actually.
Thank you. Do these people who want these advertising Black Hospital pay the council?
Yes, they do.
And do they keep the grass
No.
cut?
No.
You have to pay for that as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. There. Okay. Right. We'll move on to the next one.
Agenda item 11. It's a large roundabout measuring 40 metres in diameter, so it's one of the larger roundabouts. It was originally for 5 signs in place of 3 existing smaller ones, and the application's now been reduced to 4. It's recommended for approval, subject to the conditions in Appendix 1.
Okay. Fair enough. Right. Go.
Oppose.
Gary, second Steve. No comments. It's yes, Ted.
I support the town council's suggestion.
Okay, thank you, Ted. All those in favour, please show. Against? Mike and Ted. Thank you. Next one, please.
Agenda item 12. This is one of the modest size roundabouts. It's 18 metres in diameter. The application was originally for 4 signs to replace 3 existing and has been reduced to 3. It's recommended for approval, subject to the conditions in Appendix 1.
Thank you, Jane. Photograph of it? Oh,
Down.
business part. Okay.
Move.
Thank you, Vince. Second. Gary, thank you. Any more comments? If not, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour, please show. Against? Mike and Ted. Okay, that's gone through. Next one, please.
Agenda item 13, Junction Knightsway, Hussey Road, Stafford Drive on Battlefield Enterprise Park. It's a modest size roundabout, 18 metres in diameter. It was for 4 signs, originally in place of 3 existing, and the application's been reduced to 3 signs. And it's recommended for approval, subject to the conditions in Appendix 1.
Let me just check. I might abstain. That's on the border of my division, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
I'm
Gary.
trying to find it on the plan.
You're saying the back of the.
It should say at the bottom of the report.
Harsgate or was it?
Pigeon Heath. I think it's in.
No, it's Battlefield Enterprise Park,
Sorry.
not Victon.
Because my patch was up
So is
to,
it in Harlescott, Battlefield Walk?
my patch was up to the All Right Hussey Hotel.
Councillor David Basner. Item number.
That's right.
It won't be.
Sorry, is it, which one is it? Sorry,
Are we on agenda item 13?
Which,
Which is the junction of Knightsway, Hussey Road, Stafford Drive and Battlefield Enterprise Park.
so I made a mistake.
It's in the middle of the industrial estate, it's not on the edge.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the
whether it's in
Harsgate.
Harlesford or back. Yeah, and I think it's Hussey Road, which is
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah.
Please. Joyce,
Harlescott Walk, that
seconded
one.
Gary.
Yeah.
There's Jeff Anderson.
Right, so we've got first and second. Any objections or anybody wants to speak on it? No. In that case, can we have a show of hands for the approval, please? Thank you. I want to against it. Right, item 14, please.
Mr. Chairman, sorry for the live stream.
Oh, all right. So my mic was off, I'm afraid. I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Jane. Next one, item 14.
Item 14, yeah, roundabout junction, Battlefield Way, Vanguard Way, Knightsway, again on Battlefield Enterprise Park. One of the larger roundabouts at 34 metres in diameter. It's 4 signs in place of 3 existing, and it's recommended for approval subject to the conditions in Appendix 1. And that's in the whole school.
Yeah, Councillor Jeff Anders.
They will be there all the way.
Okay, so any comments? If not, can I propose it, please? Thank you, Edward. Seconder, please. Thank you, Joyce. Any more comments? No. Could we have a show of hands for approval, please? Against? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ted. Item 15, Jane, please.
Come up there, yeah. It's the Battleford Way roundabout, and again at Battleford Enterprise Park. Another relatively large roundabout, 33 metres in diameter. The application was originally for 4 signs in place of 3 existing, but it's been reduced to the 3 of the larger signs. It's recommended for approval, subject to conditions in Appendix 1.
Okay. Any comments on this? If not, oh yeah, Steve. No. Proposed, Steve. Proposed, seconded. Edward, thank you. It's like being an auctioneer.
Except they're normally.
Can I have a show of hands, all in favour, please? Thank you very much. Against? Thank you, Mike and Ted. Right.
And that's concludes the advert.
Jane, thank you very much. You did it very quickly and very efficiently. Thank you. Right, now we go on to appeals and appeal decisions. Have we got any comments or comments from the officers or the members? Oops.
You want me- no? Well, I'll leave members draw their own conclusions. You'll see there's 3 allowed.
Your
Microphone.
microphone, Jim.
Somebody else has got, Jane, got yours. Right, then we're busy with appeals at the moment. As you'll see, a number coming through. The ones that have been decided, I see there's 3 allowed and 2 dismissed. So not a very good month for us, really. But they are what they are. And you'll notice the one refers to the site which was discussed at last month's meeting, the one that had no, which was allowed, which members questioned. So there's the appeal decision for you now in front of you. I do recommend you read that one. The inspector's made his decision. I'm not sure I'm entirely convinced by what he says, but I have to respect the conclusions drawn. Nothing else to add on that. The only thing I wanted to point out just before I finish, going off appeal, so I wanted to point out to you, we do have the highway officer who sat in the back meeting today, so that she was available if any highway issues come up. But as it happens, you've all been very quiet at highways today.
Thank you.
Phew, that's really one application, really. So, thanks very much. Right, item 17, date of the next meeting. So, next week's normal planning committee will be held on 12th of September, 2 o'clock in here. Thank you very much for your attendance. Oh, Joyce wants to say a quick word.
I just wanted to ask a quick question, really. We seem to have lost a few. On officer decision and committee decision, because it seems to be outweighed by officer decision. I thought when I looked at the last lot, that might be distorted, but I would be interested to know, please.
40%.
Always.
I haven't actually got the percentage figures, but I would agree with you. There are a number of officer decisions being during the fast track procedure process. Somebody's got their microphone on somewhere.
Oh, it's nice. Sorry.
However, Shropshire Council as a whole remain relatively high in the percentage of appeals dismissed, so I'm not too disappointed. I must admit, we didn't have a very good day yesterday. We had a listed building one through where an inspector allowed UPVC windows in the conservation areas. So it's one of those things you have to read them as they come through the appeal decisions, and we as officers do take note of what is said and are monitoring the situation.
I think it's also worth noting, isn't it? If we did 97.5% of the decisions and they only did 2.5%, it might look a bit different.
The number that we did delegated.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you very
That's
much.
always my
No
show.
other comments. Thank you very much for a short and brief meeting. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman,
Good to say stuff, everybody.
Mr. Chairman, just an observation. You might want to report these microphones because the full council we can have 3, 4, 5 microphones on without issues. But in here, 2 on.